Happy Labor Day. It's September 1st, 2025. And of course, as always, a lot's going on in the world. And we'll be talking about that both here in the United States as well as globally. As a matter of fact, on the global stage, hundreds are dead after a 6.0 magnitude earthquake hit Afghanistan. More than 800 dead after earthquake hit eastern Afghanistan, according to what the Taliban said. So that is definitely something that is going on weather-wise and all along those lines. Chinese, Russian, Indian leaders pledged cooperation in a message to Trump. So Xi, Putin, and Modi try to signal unity at a China summit. So India looks to mend its ties with China as Trump's tariffs push it away from the U.S. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely a lot's going on in that space, and we'll be definitely having conversations about that here on this particular show and seeing what folks have to think about this alliance. Chinese Xi is urging regional leaders to oppose Cold War mentality at the summit. So Xi and Putin stand shoulder to shoulder as China casts itself as an alternative global leader, and SCO summit opening, so self-charging smartwatches, and that's definitely something that people were talking about as well. And Russian interference suspected after von der Leyen planes were hit by GPS jamming, the Russian GPS jamming. So EU chief von der Leyen's plane was hit by a suspected Russian GPS jamming device. So that's definitely something that folks are talking about as well. And a leading genocide scholars organization says Israeli actions in Gaza is genocide. Israel committing genocide in Gaza, world's top scholar on the crime says. So that's something that people are talking about. And Reuters is reporting that hundreds of UN staff are pressuring Rice Chief to call Gaza a genocide, and that's something that was coming out in a letter as well. Indonesia's deadly protests paused, but deep resentment remains. So, Indonesian students gather for protests, defying fear of a crackdown. So, it definitely looks like there is some protests going on in that part of the world as well. And Kyiv links Moscow to killing a former Ukrainian parliament speaker. So Ukraine suspects Russia of assassinating a former parliamentary speaker. So definitely there was an arrest after the fatal shooting of the Ukrainian politician Andrei Porapay. So definitely that's something as that particular war continues to rage on as well. And Sumad's flotilla for Gaza was forced to turn back due to weather conditions. So flotilla left Barcelona in biggest attempt yet to break Israeli blockade of Gaza, but it was turned around by weather. So aid flotilla taking Greta Thunberg and other activists to Gaza turned around due to stormy weather, organizers said in that case. And Israel says it killed longtime spokesman of the Hamas military wing. So Hamas spokesman Abu Obeda was killed in Gaza, Israel says. So it definitely looks like that was in a Gaza strike ahead of the planned invasion in that area. And India was the economic alternative to China, and it looks like Trump may have ended that. So Trump's tariff rebuke, Xi's handshake, and Putin's oil are India's latest foreign policy test. And the UN chief is demanding release of 11 staff arrested in Yemen. So Iran-backed Houthis raided UN offices in Yemen and detained at least 11 employees. So, oh, and by the way, China is about to show off its new high-tech weapons to the world. So on World War II anniversary, China seeks to erase U.S. role in victory. So China to unveil U.S. ship-killing weapons at a military parade. And definitely they might be showing some advanced drones and robo-beasts as well. So it definitely looks like they might be showing some weapons that they've got in their particular parade that's coming up as well. And Norway selects British-made frigates to beef up maritime defense in a $13.5 billion deal. European markets climb as UK and Norway warship deals lift defense shares. So UK secures a $10 billion deal to supply Norway with warships. So it looks like they're trying to be prepared as well. And Australia condemns the neo-Nazi linked rally of hate as thousands march against that area or that particular form of far-right politics as well. So far-right anti-immigrant protests wary leaders in Australia, and thousands attended Australia anti-immigration rallies. And clashes as thousands rallied against immigration in Australia in protest government has linked to neo-Nazis. And global movement to protect kids online fuels a wave of AI safety tech. So online age checks are proliferating, but so are concerns they curtail internet freedom. So there's even some stuff about scan your face laws for the web are having unexpected consequences. So definitely that is going on as well. So lots going on in that part of the world. So we'll see what else is going on. By the way, the EU chief tours Poland border with Belarus to show support. So strong deterrence needed against predator Putin von Olan tells the Poles, and all along those lines. So definitely EU chiefs thank Poland for helping protect Europe from the predator Putin on visit to the Belarus border. So definitely that is still something going on as well. And Pakistan's Punjab province battered by its biggest flood with 2 million people at risk. So 2 million people at risk in that particular flood and all along those lines. And Germany's Merz prepares for a long war in Ukraine. Germany leader says peace cannot come at Ukraine's expense. So Germany's Merz says Ukraine allies must ensure Russia can no longer economically wage war. So definitely that's something going on the global stage. Let's see what's happening in the U.S. stage. And then I'll bring in my California folks and see if anybody else is going to hear with me as well. But looks like an 11-year-old boy has died after being shot while ding-dong ditching in Houston. So 11-year-old boy was shot and killed while playing a ding-dong ditch doorbell prank in Houston. So he was playing a prank and was apparently shot by one of the residents that he was going and trying to prank. And judge halts U.S. effort to deport Guatemalan children as plane sits on tarmac. So judge blocks the Trump administration move to deport Guatemalan children. Biden judge halts surprisingly illegal alien minor repatriation plan after advocacy groups sued when they were trying to take some Guatemalan children and put them in another country, or maybe back to their own country, and all along those lines. Burning Man death prompts a homicide investigation. So Burning Man guest was found in a pool of blood in suspected homicide at climax of the Wild Desert Festival. So that is definitely something that folks are talking about as well. And the sprint to election day begins in the Virginia and New Jersey governor's race. And I know we're having elections here in Durham, North Carolina as well. As a matter of fact, on day after tomorrow, there'll be a candidates forum at one of my other jobs, the Hayti Heritage Center. So that'll be going on. And I think all the mayoral candidates, as well as some from the city council, will be there as well. But in terms of what's going on in Minneapolis and Virginia, governor's race tests both parties, and Minneapolis shootings miracle survival is some of what people are talking about in that race. And experts said fundraising gap in governor's race does not mean a landslide elections. Polls show Earl Sears closing gap with Spanberger in Virginia governor's race. So definitely that is something that folks are looking at as well. And bullet fragment reportedly found in boy's neck after Annunciation Church shooting. So survival of Minneapolis school shooting had shrapnel in his neck, family says, and boy who went viral for saying his friend shielded him has bullet fragments in his neck and all along those lines. And government shutdown looms once again as Congress returns after a month-long August recess. Democrats are inching for another shutdown, and the White House red lines and Democratic demands set up a showdown. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And it looks like Trump is decimating federal employee unions one step at a time. So some people even ask whether Trump's latest moves could be the beginning of the end for American unions. And apparently they're saying today, as I said, is Labor Day. And apparently Trump is the most anti-union president in decades. Matter of fact, The Guardian reports he's brazenly anti-worker as the U.S. marks the first Labor Day under Trump 2.0. And Giuliani was hurt in a crash after helping a domestic violence victim, spokesperson say. So Rudy Giuliani was hospitalized with multiple injuries after a car crash and apparently trying to help some people as well. And developer in chief, Trump determined to leave a physical imprint on the White House. Trump signs executive order to make federal architecture beautiful again. And Trump says, I want Roman columns on government buildings. And is the White House gold decor rally from Home Depot? That's what some people are asking as well. And CNBC Daily is talking about tariff uncertainty intensifies with the U.S. court's rulings. So definitely there's still a lot of news in that space as well. So like I said, I'm going to bring my folks in, see what they've got to say about a number of these things. I did see a video yesterday that I'm going to ask Rick about and everything along those lines. But it was a video that I saw with Gavin Newsom, who is convinced because he said he's gotten dozens and dozens of Trump 28 hats and other kind of paraphernalia and everything like that. So he's convinced that Trump is going to try to run in 2028. So it might be Trump Newsom. That was from a Fox interview because it was definitely, he was given the hint that he did not think that he wanted to leave. As a matter of fact, he would.
Okay, here's what's going to happen.
About the decorations, because he said, why would you make like $1 million of renovations if you weren't planning to stay in the house?
Here's what's going to happen, because I've been thinking about this a lot, because I'm writing a novel set in the near future. And you can't write about the near future without figuring out Trump. Trump will run in 2028, but he will quickly find out that this will create chaos. He'll run in 2028 because he likes the tens of millions of bucks he can siphon off the campaign contributions for his own personal use. So what's going to happen, I believe, is that in the middle of he'll run for a couple months, and then the courts will rule against him in a couple cases. Then he'll switch to running for senator from a red state. Probably he could. Now there's a Senate seat open in 2028 in Florida, his home state, but there are a bunch of even redder states: Idaho, Alabama, Arkansas. I think he'll run for senator. That lets him continue the grift for year after year after year. But he's been sick the last several days and out of the picture. Like had disappeared for several days, then briefly showed up on a golf course, maybe. So the deal is that he and his people have to keep him together physically until he can run for something in 2028, which could be tough. But there are various medical interventions they can do, basically Weekend at Bernie's stuff if he starts really falling apart.
Could do that. Hey, Jim, what's your thoughts on this? Because like I said, I just stumbled across this yesterday. It was a video, and I didn't download it, of Gavin Newsom talking about, hey, I can't see you spending $20 million to redecorate your new home and everything like that, and just leave. That doesn't make any sense. That's what Gavin Newsom was saying and everything like that. So he is convinced, and also because some of Trump's people keep sending him 2028 paraphernalia. I think it's mostly hats, but it might be T-shirts as well.
Well, Trump running in 2028 could be the best thing to happen to Democrats. Sorry, I preempted Jim.
Jim, what's your thoughts?
Yes. Oh, well, Newsom's been one of the people that have stood up to Trump. Of course, Trump hates California because it is a blue state. You could go back to the wildfires where he said that he thought we should be raking the forests and all this kind of nonsense. But it goes much deeper. And I don't think that Trump can get away with being a candidate for 2028. It doesn't mean he's not going to try to stay in power. And he may try to avoid an election, which is my deeper fear. Because if he tries to run in an election and get elected, I don't think that will work. But if he tries to stay in power by declaring a national emergency, I think that's more likely to be the way that he goes. I hadn't thought about him running for Senate. It's clear that he is in cognitive decline and physical decline. And I do think that, that won't matter to Trump supporters. So he could get elected to the Senate.
Yeah, Trump's dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at in his 80s, but lived for another 8 years. So Trump he could live for quite a long time with actual Alzheimer's.
He could, and sometimes that can be hereditary and all along
But,
those lines and everything. But just really quick,
oh, wait. Well, there's one thing Jim mentioned that Trump may declare an emergency. So we're about to find out what the Supreme Court thinks about Trump declaring an emergency, because an appellate court just overruled most of his tariffs because Congress determines tariffs except in an emergency. So we're about to find out, and Trump has said there's an emergency. So we're about to find out if the Supreme Court agrees with him. And if they don't, if they say there was no emergency and they agree with the appellate court, then that bodes well for Trump not being able to declare an electoral emergency in 2020.
I don't agree with that. I think he can call a national emergency that's not necessarily involving the election, but anything that he decides is an emergency, he can call it. And then by the time it works its way up to the Supreme Court to get it, the election will have come and gone. So
not only that, isn't there a strong possibility, because there's already 3 states that are involved right now. So I mean, there's only 50 states total and everything. So is there any possibility in both of your minds that we could be heading to martial law? Because I mean, he's already brought the National Guard out to California, he's brought it out to DC, and now he's talking about Chicago.
Yeah. And this is the kind of thing like we used to see in old war movies when people were forced to show their papers. And I see that in our future as well. Because, with the, stop and nationwide frisking of people to see whether or not they are legal immigrants or what have you, the national racial profiling that's going on that will subject people to being searched. And they're going to have to show proof of citizenship. So we're not very far away from show me your papers and having National Guard, so-called National Guard, but really what they are is federal officers going to come in and declare that you are an enemy of the state and to prove otherwise.
But Jim, how can you be an enemy of the state if you're like all of about 10 or 12? Because that was stopped, at least for now, but it looked like they were getting ready to send a bunch of Guatemalan children, I assume, back to Guatemala, but it could have been to
anywhere.
We know and everything like that. But
unescorted young children who don't have family there, who are going to become essentially orphans once they arrive in Guatemala.
Does any of this sound like an American thing to do?
But what is going to, if Trump wants to do martial law, who's going to stop him? There needs to be an enforcement. So far, we only have the goodwill of the parties involved that they will follow court rulings. And Trump has already shown a willingness to go against court rulings.
Well, he said that he liked Hitler's generals. They did what he said. And so we're going to be relying on the generals not obeying the commander-in-chief's orders. And can we count on that? This is an open question in my mind. They have stood up to him in the past when he's, ordered them to do things that are not in their purview. But sending the military to the border, for example, it's an illegal use of the forces. But who can put anything past what Trump will try, and who will stand up to him is the $1 million question.
And if it gets bad enough, you're going to have general versus generals arguing, or colonels versus generals, saying, no, this is clearly unlawful. And another general saying what the president says goes.
And you had that the last time that Trump was in office and everything. But today is Labor Day, and I did not realize it, even though I should have realized it. But what is your thoughts around the state of unions and whether unions can survive presidency? Because they are saying that he's the most anti-union president in decades.
The unions got played. The unions got played. And the union leadership is always historically corrupt, or at least jackasses. And Biden was the most pro-union president in 80 years, or maybe ever. And then, but the head of the Teamsters, right? He endorsed Trump, I believe.
Yes, I think that's right.
Which is like just pure stupidity.
pure stupidity. And before the show ends, I have to say power to the people, right on. And I do think that Labor Day is a reminder that unions gave voice to the powerless. And what they did, we have to remember our American history when union busting was the way of the land. The Pinkertons were notoriously used to break up unions. And people were, there were old songs, and Mark, better than I, like I owe my soul to the company store. And, right. You have to remember those days when people were anti-unions, even though people were just trying to get paid fairly so they could survive and live a life of quiet dignity. And the unions gave them the power to stand up to these forces that were beyond their control as individuals. They couldn't fight them as individuals, but unions allowed them to get a voice in the political process. And as Rick pointed out, Tammany Hall is the famous one for the corruption of the unions became a problem. Unions have their problems. There's no question about it. But unions were also the savior of the working class. And to say now that we don't need them is folly, because people negotiating against powerful entities have no choice. They have no power. They have no voice. But collective bargaining is the way that they have been able to live lives of quiet dignity.
A union literally saved my life. I'm in the Writers Guild, which is a union for people who write for TV and movies. And I have excellent insurance, unlike most Americans, through this union. And I've been able to have diagnostic and therapeutic procedures done that have frickin' saved my life, that probably wouldn't otherwise have been approved by some, like some lesser insurer.
Yeah, that's very true and everything like that. And I know there's been push to get unions even around the corner from me, because I live near Duke University. And I know there have been attempts to try to get some unionizing of some of the hospital workers, as well as some of the other folks in that space and all along those lines. And of course, there's been for at least a decade the fight for 15 to try to get the fast food workers a better wage, because definitely it is not doing all that well for them. But what I did realize is that apparently in North Carolina, only 2.5% of workers, and I know some people that are involved in union work, are union members, and state law heavily restricts union organizing and bargaining power. So that's been the part of why there hasn't been those unions.
So, I believe union membership as a percent of all workers peaked in maybe 1970, and it's now a third of what it was. And that's bad for America. It's bad for workers. Corporate, we've seen, with the behavior of Amazon and Starbucks, that corporations can't be trusted to do the right thing by their workers if it's going to cost them money.
And they can stop people from unionizing. And this is the thing, that they've used their influence and power to prevent people from forming unions. And so this is the thing that you're up against. In the old days, it was the Pinkertons busting skulls. And nowadays, it's people using corporate maneuvers to prevent people from collective bargaining. Now, collective bargaining is not a bad thing. It's not a swear word. Collective bargaining is the way that the middle class was strong. The middle class is shrunk and is under increasing pressure. Income inequality is unbelievable right now, and getting worse. It's not getting better. And so the middle class needs to have a voice in these discussions. And right now they're just being shut out.
It's also a cultural thing where when reality shows take a bunch of jackasses and turn them into multimillionaires, everybody thinks, well, I'm just one TV show away from being a multimillionaire. And when your phone, when you're always on your phone and you're getting personalized messages and you feel like you're awesome, you're at the center of your own drama, those are anti-collectivist things that get people to think, I'm special. I don't need to team up with other people to fight the man. I am the man.
Yeah, they think that they're the man and everything like that. Speaking of the man and all of those lines, the founder of the network is in the back. He'll pop on and everything later on. But I was just wondering, what is our thoughts around the whole notion of this new world order? Because apparently
Oh
Xi
yeah.
and Putin and even Modi are now friends and all along those lines. And this could be a very dangerous alliance, or it could be a very positive alliance and everything like that. So what is your take on this? Because it
Yeah.
looks like we're pushing India toward the China fold and not away from the China fold.
This is not a story for today. This has been ongoing. And Trump may be the most divisive president in our history in terms of blue state versus red state and far right versus far left. All of the division that he has caused in the United States, he's uniting the rest of the world against us. So he's a force for unity for the rest of the world. And this is not just happening today. There was news today about it, but it's been ongoing. And all his tariffs, his mind-numbingly stupid tariffs, which are nothing but taxes on people, the American consumer pays the price. Some corporations will be eating it, but they can't eat it forever. So we'll pass it on to the American consumer. It's a
all right,
tax.
so the White House is lying about tariffs. So the White House just put out a tweet saying they've made $8 trillion from tariffs. The U.S. has made less than 160 billion, which is not nothing, but it's 1/50th of what they're claiming. So it's just crazy lies. And Trump is an isolationist. He's pulling the U.S. away from the rest of the world. The 20th century has been called the American century because we got involved with the rest of the world and it gave us incredible benefits. There were isolationists leading up, a lot of them freaking Nazis leading up to World War II saying, let Hitler alone. That's none of our business. And then we got in the world's business and we ended up owning half the world. After World War II, we had 50%, we made half of the world's stuff. 50% of the world's manufacturing was in the US, made us incredibly rich. Trump is taking, and it's obviously the rest of the world has come back, but Trump is hastening our decline.
Well, speaking of hastening and declining, we've got Nick with us now and everything, and I'm sure he's got some thoughts about it because he's part of this group of folks that have been traveling internationally. But apparently, and I know Sasha, when he's here, has talked about it, there's been a downturn in international travel to the U.S., and they're saying that it may last beyond the summer. So experts are warning that we may not be in this last
beyond the summer. Vegas was down 13%. I'm sure it's going to be more than that. And so again, look for deals in Vegas because they are desperate at this point.
And jobs are down and inflation is up. So, the future is not looking bright. The only thing Americans can do is vote and throw the bums out.
So I want to go back to a couple dicks in the news. You mentioned the Ding Dong Ditch murder.
Right.
That kid, that poor freaking kid, we've all played Ding Dong Ditch. It's really not that much fun. I mean, maybe if you add the dog poop trick where you put dog poop in a bag, paper bag, you set the bag on fire, and then you ring the doorbell. I've never done that, but that seems to be the classic one that would be very interesting. But anyway, the kid was shot multiple times in the back. The guy was arrested. There's a picture of the guy's house. The guy has a late model, really souped up, expensive Mustang with a lot of options on it. So the guy is, a middle-aged kind of, they say he's driving a car that increases the likelihood he's a total dick. There's one more total dick in the news, which at the US Open, a tennis star is signing a hat for a kid. This guy reaches in, yanks the hat out of the kid's hands, stuffs it in a bag and scuttles away. Turns out this guy is the CEO of a paving company, publicly traded in Poland. And once he was outed as being the dick, the company has lost 15% of its value.
Oh, well. Speaking of losing value, and Sasha, you may have some thoughts around this because you do the investment show on Wednesdays and everything like that. But apparently, and I know that Jim will have some thoughts around this, and even Rick. But apparently, farmers are facing a very difficult time here in the U.S. ahead of the harvest season, and all along those lines. As a matter of fact, one of the articles, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, was talking about how corn and soybeans rule the American farm, but that could be a growing problem and everything like that. So, what is your take? Are we going to wind up having to go to other countries to get our farm goods? And it seems like you said, Canada isn't necessarily trading to the U.S., but it does seem like there's some problems. They're even saying the yield tour predictions come in below what they were expecting, and that was according to the USDA and everything like that. So are we heading toward some recession, and agriculture being part of the problem with the upcoming recession if we're heading toward a recession? Any thoughts on this?
There's some much more important thing happening right now in China. There are meetings of cooperation of all these so-called global South countries, or you may call them any different name. But what's important happened is that China has offered all these countries assistance worth hundreds of millions of dollars as a result of Trump's tariffs. So this is showing that his dream of bringing China to some kind of negotiation table or something like this is he's like a little kid, 3 years old, who doesn't understand what he's doing. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. He doesn't understand economy. He doesn't understand anything. And you have this convicted criminal felon to rule the biggest country in the world. That's what's happening. Forget about the farmers. So the farmers will go bankrupt. Okay, they will go to live in maybe Indian reservations, or maybe go to Guatemala or somewhere else. There was a plane, I just saw it on CNN.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
And the children going to Guatemala, and then judge ordered to reverse it. You have criminal in charge of the biggest country in the world. That's what happened, and there is a pay time back, baby. Payback time, baby. And this is Caterpillar is number one to think about.
Wait, you got the Mickey Mouse voice.
Yeah, you got the Mickey Mouse voice.
Farmers commit suicide at 3 times the rate of the rest of the population. It's a brutal business. And what will happen under these tariffs when they can't sell to foreign markets is that it'll lead to more consolidation. Small farmers will have to sell out to the big, deep-pocketed, big farming conglomerates because they can afford. A big, rich conglomerate can survive a downturn, and it can use their assets on hand to buy up little farms. It's terrible for people. May forget that during the first time Trump was president, he had to send subsidy checks to all American farmers to make up for the income they lost to international trade after the first time Trump tried his tariff bullshit.
Okay, well, let's talk about the tariff stuff, all right? On this network, on the Lawyer's Den, we had Jeffrey Schwab talk about the tariffs. And everybody here on the network doesn't know who Jeffrey Schwab is because you didn't watch the Lawyer's Den.
Is he related to Charles Schwab?
No, Mark. He was the lead counsel for the Voss versus Trump case. Okay, and you guys didn't follow that either because all you want to do is complain about Trump's tariffs. Well, what happened was he won in the lower court. So basically, the trial court said the tariffs were unconstitutional. But here's the reason why. It's a legislative function. It's not an executive function.
We were paying attention.
I'm going to update you guys because you guys like to talk, but you don't like to listen. You don't like to learn. Okay. So then he went to the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. And guess what? He lost again. So now the thing is, it's being appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States. So right now, the tariffs may be declared unconstitutional. And that's where it stands right now on the tariffs.
And it will be good, as we said earlier, it'll be good to get this ruling because it will let us know how the Supreme Court feels about the president declaring emergencies when there really isn't an emergency.
And by the way, that what you're saying, Rick, is the key point in the case. And we picked it up because we're following all the Supreme Court cases. and we picked it up, and it looked very interesting. Of all the cases, it looked to be the most damaging case, because for him to exercise that power, he actually has to go through the legislature. He can't just do this unilaterally. And so when Jeffrey Schwab filed the complaint and I read it, I was going, you know what, this thing has merit. So I brought him on before he had won at the trial court. And I thought Peter Bennett, our attorney, tore him apart. But that's actually good, because then he realized it's like moot court, the weaknesses of his argument, and he shored it up, which you usually do before you go into trial. And then he won. He won at the trial court level. And he went on further, he won at the appellate court level. So now the only appeal for Trump is the Supreme Court. Now, what does it mean? It means all these crazy tariffs that you guys have been talking about could be declared unconstitutional. I still think it has merit. I think it's going to be Roberts and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch's decision, with Roberts probably leaning, hey, that's you can't do that, because the legislature doesn't allow him to do it. And so, and we know the liberals are going to go vote against Trump.
Right. So let's talk about the Supreme Court. The deal is the Supreme Court has 3 liberals who will vote against Trump just about every time. It has 2 crazy conservative assholes, Alito and Thomas, who will vote for him.
Right. By the way, you're exactly correct. 3 will go against him, 2 will go for him, and then you have your swing votes, which are
and those 4 people. Now, liberals love to attack those 4, but if you look at how they've been on the bench, Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, Roberts, they often are really good, surprisingly good. Like Amy Coney Barrett, she's going to vote against abortion every time, but on other stuff, she's really thoughtful and reasonable.
I totally agree with you. In other words, the thing is, Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts swing both ways. But if you look at the arguments were pretty strong that he doesn't have the right to unilaterally declare all the tariffs and do the way he's doing it.
We'll see how the tariffs play out.
Because it's a limited power of the president. And remember, it's the legislative branch which makes the law. It's not the president. He's an executive branch. He's to enforce it, but he's not to make it. That's Congress. And Congress already made a law, and it deals with the Emergency Act. And there is no emergency, so he can't act. And so they're winning at the lower courts, they're winning at the federal court. Now the thing is, it's one more shot at the Supreme Court. I believe they have a good chance. I give it maybe 60-40 in favor of the tariffs being all declared illegal. Like, no kidding. Because it's an emergency power. It's not a power that you can just jump up and say, okay, I'm going to do an executive order and create tariffs right now, and I'll make different amounts. I mean, I just don't see him winning this one.
And a lot of the justices, Roberts has been accused of this repeatedly. They don't want to wreck America. So they don't want to wreck the Supreme Court. So Roberts it has been said to try to nudge the rest of the court in the direction of not fucking everything up.
Yeah, and it comes down to this. Who makes the laws in the United States? Does Congress make the law, or does the president make the law?
Congress. It's the legislative branch.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And so the thing is, that's the reason I saw his arguments were very cogent. They were very powerful. And the law was pretty clear. It had to be an emergency, but he's not using it. It's pretty clear he's not using it as emergency. He's using it as a tool for negotiation. Now, by the way, if they change the law and say, hey, you can use this as a tool for negotiation, then Trump would win. But that's not how it currently stands. So I think he's 60-40 in favor. Actually, he's only a 40% chance of winning, 60% chance he loses. But that's going to be a big one. And I think if it doesn't come up September, it'll certainly be on the October term. It'll definitely come up between now and the end of the year. And it's going to be a big decision. The lead counsel was on our TV show, and he discussed, and that's Jeffrey Schwab. You can go look him up. He's with Liberty Justice, whatever center. And I found his arguments not to be persuasive because Peter Bennett was a lot better, but also he could refine them before he went to trial because he could. And I think that's what he did. And then at trial, he won because all you have to do is refine your arguments seriously, and then the courts buy it. And he uses the same arguments. The appellate court, he wins again. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win in the Supreme Court, and this will be a major decision. The other problem that's happening is in the end of September, I believe we have to make another, I say, increase in our national debt ceiling. And there are some pundits that say that the Republicans are going to not allow that, which will, of course, create the stock market to crash, especially if they don't pay their debt. So with that, I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, I got to go and everything. I did have a quick question for you and all along those lines. And it was both for you and Sasha. And I'm going to tell the story about a rags to riches guy that I saw in Forbes and everything along those lines. So I guess rags to riches can happen. But we were talking about earlier before you got here. But what are your thoughts, Nick, and your thoughts, Sasha, about the importance of unions and the importance of Labor Day? Because today is a Labor Day and everything. And I just wondered if y'all thought that they were still relevant, because we were having this discussion earlier and some people found them to still be relevant. Other people probably that are listening don't find them as relevant. So I just wanted your thoughts on unions in the 21st century.
Well, unions helped make America powerful in the 20th century, but there are only 1/3 as many union members right now as there were at the peak of union membership. The unions used to have a really powerful leader. I just read an article about him. He died in a plane crash. And after that, union membership started declining because union leadership is often corrupt and maybe incompetent. And yeah, we need unions to help us fight the corporation. People are still fighting the car companies. The car companies are fighting, of small, teeny profit margins and tariffs. So they're going to squeeze their workers. But we're also fighting Amazon and Starbucks, the new corporations of the 21st century. And they've been shown to be no better at protecting their workers, treating their workers decently.
That makes sense. What's your take on unions, Sasha? And are they big in Canada and all along those lines? I know there was definitely some active unions in Eastern Europe where you also had some background in that, but how big are the unions in Canada?
Well, they're very influential in Canada, and there are not too many fights between unions and the businesses. Somehow they are coordinating quite nicely, or maybe there is something I don't know about. I probably should admit that as well. It's difficult to imagine today's society without trade unions, simply because otherwise people who own and run the corporations, they can impose all kind of unjust measurements that would make life of workers very difficult. It's not necessarily the case. It's not 100%, but it would allow them to be unopposed and steer into that direction. So I think overall, I would think that there is a case for unions to be there and fight for its members, I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense and everything. Just really quickly, this is for both of you, because I think of both of you as being entrepreneurs. And I was reading this article in Forbes about Dick Portilla, who apparently opened a hot dog stand in Chicago with $1,100 and built it into a $1 billion regional chain and all along those lines. So it's one of those rags to riches kind of stories and everything like that. He is now a 85-year-old former Marine and feeling nostalgic about what he built and all along those lines, but definitely he made his money off of hot dogs and this whole fortune and everything, and made a heap of money and all along those lines. As a matter of fact, they said he after he made this sale that when he sold his company, he negotiated soon after the sale to buy back some of the land and build into the 20 Portilla restaurants in both Illinois and Arizona for more than $100 million, locking in 20-year leases at some of the chain's highest grossing locations. So he's gone on to do kind of like Trump. He's built dozens of different businesses, including everything from a strip mall in the Chicago suburbs and industrial properties in Indiana to Houston apartments and spec homes in Naples, Florida. And he's the majority owner of the Boathouse at Disney Springs, America.
So,
Highest growing independent restaurant with 47 million in revenue. So I guess what I'm asking is this just a one-off kind of deal, or is this rag to riches kind of story something that we don't hear enough of?
there's an important principle in what he did. So with AI disrupting every kind of business, you don't know whether your business is going to work 5 years from now. The principle is own the land your business is on, because at least you've got the property, even if your business quits working. Nordstrom, the department store, I believe, owns most of the land that the Nordstroms are on. Now, the department store concept doesn't work very well anymore. People don't want to go pay full retail price when they can order it online. But Nordstrom's stock price has held up because they own their land and they can repurpose it. Like we had a Nordstrom, we had a whole mall that went away after one of our earthquakes in Northridge, and it got they turned the Nordstrom into apartments. They took the building, hollowed it out, and that money went to the company. So own your land.
Yeah, then that makes sense. And apparently he's a rags to riches story that also is an immigrant story, because apparently he was born to a Greek immigrant mother and a Mexican immigrant father who worked in factories and sold insurance, and he grew up in the public housing project. So you can grow up poor and still make it, and all along those lines. I just realized that what business he owned, because apparently when he was 23, he convinced his wife to pour their life savings of $1,100, which would be $11,600 today, into the business, which he named the Doghouse. And doghouses are all over the place and everything. So definitely that's what he opened, was the Doghouse, which I know is all over the country and everything like that.
So I have one more suggestion about the future.
Yes.
So, in 100 years ago, people died sooner. They only had 1 or 2 shots at success before time ran out for a lot of people. Now we average 80 years, so we've got a little more time. And if AI makes medicine even more effective, the average person might end up living to 100, might be healthy into their late 80s. So I'm hoping it gives us more time to have more chances to take risks and fail and start over again. Like you look at actors who gets famous, like Margot Robbie for a few years was the most, Nicole Kidman was the world's most famous actress, Meryl Streep, Margot Robbie. And then for every one of those, there are hundreds of actors who didn't quite make it. But if AI extends our lifespans and gives, you watch people on screen, they've only got, like, women only have like 10 years to be their, what they call fuckable is the term in the industry. And that goes away fast. But if AI makes us healthier and lets us live longer, people may be able to take more risks.
Hey, Sasha, in 2 days, we'll have the investment show, and y'all always have great conversations and everything. One thing that this Portillo guy talks about, and I can't remember your views on this, I'm here to ask you, and everything, is this notion of diversifying. Because one of the things he said was that means diversifying as much as possible, even within the same piece of real estate. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket, he said, pointing to one of his suburban strip malls where tenants include a car wash, a Mexican restaurant, a beauty shop, and a FedEx. There's no one big major guy where if he closes, you're in trouble. That's my safety net. So I can't remember your thoughts on diversification in investment. So what are your thoughts on that? Should people be diversifying? Because I know that your main thing has been lately NVIDIA, but I know you've got other investments too. So are you a big fan of diversification?
No, I'm not. I think that diversification, it's something for people who already made their fortune in stock market or somewhere else. So they want to preserve their capital, and therefore the diversification will definitely help them to do so. So even some of their investment may not be very successful, but overall, if say you have 20 different investments and the 2-3 didn't perform well, but then 17 will still bring it up to a certain level. Now when you're younger, then you have to work at making your fortune. You don't have it. So with a limited capital, diversification will not allow you to make any meaningful gains. Therefore, you should rule 100% against diversification. Find your niche, find something that you understand, something that works for you, and concentrate on that until you'll make it, you will become wealthy, and then you will have to worry about preservation of capital.
Sasha's right. Sasha's right that in order to succeed in picking stocks, you need to understand the underlying business as well as the other analysts, maybe better. I knew a guy who was a professional gambler every year, in college football. And that guy spent 60 hours a week studying college football so that he knew he could find the places where the bookies got it wrong and set the line wrong. But it takes a ton of research. I'm sure, Sasha, you do hours of research every week, even on the businesses you already own, to make sure that you continue to understand what's going on with them.
What I'm spending more time than on anything else is study human behavior when it comes to stock prices, because when you see sometimes in financial publication, you have chart. Let's see, it goes like this and this, that, and so on. So this chart, so you think that it's kind of a mathematical formula for predicting the price, or no, it's not. All chart does, it shows human behavior when more people are selling and why, and then it goes down, and then they're buying and why, and so on. So you can see the pattern, and then you can get the lines connecting the lowest points of the chart and the highest point of the chart. So you can clearly see now where is the support area, where is the resistant area. It's very clear, and it works 100% of the time. So if you don't do that, then you have to follow our friend.
Right. So Sasha's seen patterns. I've seen some patterns too, but I haven't studied them enough to have the confidence to act on them. Like when bad news comes out about a company, they usually overshoot how bad it is. And so for a couple hours, there might be a chance to buy the company for cheaper than it should be, and then it'll bounce back up. Am I confident enough? Have I studied this as much as Sasha? No. So I don't act on it.
Interesting case was a stock by the name United Health.
Mm-hmm.
It just was completely devastated, coming down from $600 a share to about $250. So a complete devastation. And then I decided that, okay, it will not go right back to 600 anytime soon. But even if it will go down up to 300 from 250, it's already a sizable move. And if it will go farther, it's even better. So what I did when stock was about 250, I sold 300 puts on January expiration. So for me, the game is, and I got very hefty premium at the time. So I will keep the premium as long as the stock is 300 or higher. But even if it will say 290, even 280, I'm still making money. But I have a lot of time left. I have September, October, November, December, and part of January. So this is a very logical position. That one is not based on chart, no. This is based on common sense. So they have couple of bad quarters. They have some lawsuits. So they have all negative things that they could be. Oh, and guess what? When stock finally started to recover, it went to 290 from 250. News. Warren Buffett is making investment into United Health. So that helped me a lot because it elevated stock to over 300. So I'm now.
Is it United Health, the one where Luigi shot the CEO?
Yep, that's the same
that's
one.
bad news every day for month after month.
Yeah. Yeah.
That didn't help the publicity. I know that the other thing that goes on Labor Day, and we've only got a few more minutes to go, and everything is people get caught up in sports. As a matter of fact, I was watching a couple of football games yesterday. I watched South Carolina beat Virginia Tech, and that was a game involving one of the Heisman Trophy contenders and everything like that. I also saw a little bit of the game where Archie Manning's kid did not do all that well, and I think it was Texas that he plays for, if I remember correctly, and everything, but he lost his game. And then there was the close game that I did not watch, but I caught the results of it between Notre Dame and Miami. And I know that Nick will be glad that Miami won. And then people are wondering if the Canes are coming back. But there are two games this evening. The UNC, which is right here in this area, is playing with the coach formerly of the New England Patriots. He's got the young girlfriend, and we'll see how he does in his first game against TCU, and that's this afternoon. And then I think, if I remember correctly, Sasha, you're a tennis fan, and we've got Coco Gauff going against Naomi Osaka and everything like that. So any ideas as to who's going to win that match?
Osaka will demolish her. You will see that. But everything, all news, even on CNN, they showed that shot, what Alcaraz did behind his back. This is the most unusual shot in tennis history, never done before. And this is really something amazing. I can't even imagine. When it happened, I well, something is wrong. And they repeated several times. And I thought, what a genius. And this is this is really...
Alcaraz is from Spain. Oh, by the way, I did see part of the Miami game because I did go to the University of Miami for law school. And it was good to see the Canes win, and just the first half because it was 3:00 in the morning in Spain.
It's a very early in the morning, but they did manage to win. They won by a field goal. It was a close game, and both of those should be contenders in the sports world.
And then my other team, South Florida, beat Boise State. So that was
it was a good day for you and everything like that. As we get ready to wind up and everything like that, the other question I was going to ask everybody, maybe not so much my fine folks in, Sasha in Canada, because I don't think that they're part of it and everything. But I was thinking about pulling out $1 or $2 and going to buy a ticket, because apparently the lottery is up to $1.1 billion and everything like that. So the chances of me winning are probably
I think your chances of winning, I think they got it wrong. It can't be this small. It's 1 in 3 million. That can't possibly be correct.
Yeah, probably is not correct. It's probably much greater than that.
But yeah, I mean, but if you only played the lottery when the jackpots are this big, you would eventually make more money. You would hit, but you would need hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions of years of doing that.
Where there was one guy, what he did, he raised tons of money and bought tons of tickets.
Yeah, he bought every possible combination of numbers.
Yeah, well, what he did is he figured out when there was positive equity in the pot. And so the thing is, and every now and then that happens. And so what happens, then he bet heavily. But, the same thing happens in the stock market. So if you and it happens more frequently in the stock market. So why wouldn't you play the stock market, which... When we were complaining about, these poor laborers, well, why don't they invest in the market? I'll tell you why. It's because they're trained from birth to be an employee and to spend their paycheck. And so they buy Apple computers and Apple phones and not Apple stock. That's the reason why. But if they had bought Apple stock, they'd be rich enough if they did that to buy as many Apple phones as they want. But they don't. They're not trained that way.
Think about that. They're going for the 1.1 billion, because it was 1 billion, then it's 1.1 billion, and that's in today's drawing, I think tonight and everything like that. If nobody wins, then it might be 1.2 billion. Who knows what they're going to be until they eventually get a winner.
And here's what I also agree with Rick on, is that a lot of people think they're going to be the next lottery winner, they're going to be the next one, and they're not. Okay, their path is to doom, and the only question is, when shall the doom take place? My bet, and I know we're going to have David Walker on next week. My bet is the American economy will fail in around the early 2030s. And it's because that's when the Social Security Trust Fund runs out of money. And it's already been earmarked to reduce Social Security checks 24%. It's already baked in the cake. Medicare will completely run out of money. So what are they going to do? They're already starting to do it. Medicare isn't going to cover everything. They're going to say, we don't cover this, we don't cover that. This is, when you had your colonoscopy, that's an elective procedure. Now you got to pay for it yourself. Watch. And if I was
Well,
a betting
speaking
man,
of watching, because we're getting ready to wrap up and everything, but just really speaking of watching really quickly, who's going to get more views at 4:00? I think that's what time the game is. I know it's an afternoon game and everything. Are we going to see more clips of Bill Belichick, or are we going to see more clips of pictures of his young girlfriend and everything during this game? So who's going to get watched? That might be the next bet.
okay, it'll be more pictures of Bill Belichick, but people want to see his 24-year-old girlfriend. Okay,
Right.
come on, Mark. I mean, she's pretty hot, and she's
She is a hot
24.
young lady and everything, and we also
Also,
got
she's
Travis.
a little crazy, and that's what you.
Okay.
If you're my age, if you're our age, you want somebody who's crazy because that's what it takes to be 24 and dating somebody our age.
Yeah, that's basically it. But you guys, we'll see how the game goes. I probably will not be watching.
Goes, and everybody's also going to see, because this is the weekend of football. Football will start as well. NFL, and I'll start on Thursday with the game, and then I think Friday Kansas City will be playing, and we'll see Travis Kelce, and of course people will be talking about his girlfriend as well, Taylor Swift, and all along those lines, since they are now engaged. They're just not boyfriend girlfriend; they're actually engaged. And yes, I do have your links and all along those lines, Sasha, and they will be coming to you this afternoon and everything like that. So they will be coming to you this afternoon. You got to make the chess one. The other one's already made.
The sooner the better. Thank you.
No problem at all. And on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here. I'm going to go watch some sports and get Sasha his links. We've got reruns for most of the day, but we will have a live show around the timeshare, because I do know that Irene is doing her show live, but economics and media are in rerun land and everything like that. So we'll be in rerun land for most of the day, but we'll be back with another live edition of World Edition tomorrow, and we'll find out what the results of the games were. And on that note, we're getting on out of here, and I'll see you sending you those links.